This meeting is being recorded.
So if you're on mute, if you got your mics open, just be aware that we'll be recording this, and we look forward to meeting Bruce. We've all talked about we can't find people to work for us. We find places that are not open as long as they used to be, or their service is slow, or things are missing. And we're just trying to figure out where all the people have gone. We had a brief conversation before we started the call, and look forward to hearing from Bruce to tell us what he's doing about it and where things are, and some ideas to help us grow our business. Bruce, it's all yours.
Thanks for having me, guys. So yeah, and we've kind of touched on some of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. And of course, the big buzz term and the great resignation, but I believe that it's more than a buzz term. It's actually a shift in the workforce and how it's going to look moving forward, at least for the near future. Of course, we've touched on kind of like the number of people that quit their jobs last year, 4.5 in November alone. Unemployment right now at 4%, which is around average, a little higher than the average. And just overall, when the pandemic started, I think 14% of Americans quit their job or lost their job. And so, which was a huge spike. If you look at the graph, it's right around 2-3% of people losing their job. And then beginning of the pandemic, of course, it went up. And as people were living from home, a couple of different things happened. I read that a lot of times when people are faced with not a near-death crisis, but also a life-altering crisis. So as we know, the pandemic was a life-altering crisis for a lot of families. For some, it was a uptick in business, depending on what industry you are. But for most, they were negatively affected. So people are having a lot of time at home. They're able to take a break from the day-to-day that they're normally in and look back and reflect and realize that this isn't the job for me, whether it's they're overworked, whether, they don't have opportunity for growth, whether they aren't being paid enough, whether the culture's bad. There's so many different things that can cause an employee to be disengaged. And we saw that with the pandemic, people actually are acting on it. A couple years before that, it was more of a seller's market where people were afraid to leave their job just because of the economic place that we were as a country. But now with the pandemic, people go home and like Susie was saying earlier, a lot of people quit their job not even knowing what they're going to do. And out of that, for almost 5 million, a third of them were those types of people that quit their job, didn't know what they're going to do next. The other third were people that switched careers. A lot of people going towards technology, in other areas outside of what they normally do, other areas that are paying well. And then the other third are like me that started their own company. So I guess my background, I've been in staffing on the agency side for going on 8.5, 9 years now. And what happened with me was I lost my job during the beginning of the pandemic and immediately decided that I wanted to start my own thing because it was a thought process that I had already had in my head, but just was a little afraid to make that leap of faith and jump into the deep end of running your own business. Unfortunately, it was a blessing in disguise because that push that I got into the deep end off of that diving board by my old employer has landed me in a position to where I love what I do. I love the schedule that I've been able to create for myself, and the type of work-life balance that I've been able to create, and the money that I've been able to make as well has been great. And so I think that's kind of what's happening right now is people are figuring out that they hold more power than they actually knew that they held. And so companies are starting to have to reevaluate that and figure out ways that they can go about making sure that they're keeping people happy. So one of the things that I noticed, people that weren't very flexible, job employers weren't being flexible with the people that they were looking for. And so with that same rigidness, you've seen jobs stay open for 6, 12 months at a time. So what I think is going to continue to happen is people are going to continue to face these same things that we touched on: burnout, safety controls, a general feeling of that they are in charge of their life and their destiny. being disengaged with the work that they're doing. All of these issues are things that employers are going to have to address. And so the smart ones are starting to do that. But the companies who aren't, that are remaining rigid in their old ways, are going to continue to struggle. From what I've seen in the market, are going to continue to struggle in the job market. So I tried to come up with a couple of ways that I think that companies can start to have better turnouts, or as far as people applying to their jobs and just overall finding better people. One thing that I mentioned that I saw was reskilling. So instead of trying to go out and hire somebody brand new for a position, one thing that you can do is you can take that employee that may be feeling a little burnout, maybe feeling as if they're not on the right track of their career, and reskilling them. So basically what that means is teaching someone a new skill as opposed to hiring somebody brand new. It can solve a couple of problems, whereas you're giving that person that was maybe lacking purpose or lacking focus, you're giving them something new to work on. And overall, it just can save the company a lot of money. Could save around $136,000 per employee by reskilling that employee, as opposed to finding somebody brand new, which we know is a lot tougher now with the market and how it's changed. Another thing that they also can change is the overall culture and understanding what your workforce looks like. Millennials like myself are over 50% of the workforce in the US today. So one thing that they can do to try and help fix that is understanding how the needs have changed for people and their families over time. Whereas people before were just worried about benefits and pay. Millennials, they're worried more so, or not more so, but also worried about things like, am I engaged with my work? Do I like the people that I work with? Are they paying attention to the mental side of things, like having mental health checks for your employees, making sure that they take their time off, or encouraging them to take time off. Of course, better paying benefits is always going to be a huge thing as well. But all of these things kind of play a part into how the market has changed. And I think that moving forward, those good companies, they're going to have to be able to let people work remotely if they want to find those right people. And overall, it's just like that flexibility that people need to have in order to find the right people. Because the seller's market, with it being that way, people aren't going to just take a job because they need a job anymore. People are being a lot more flexible, or excuse me, a lot more picky about the types of opportunities that they take. And so those are just some things that I put together, notes that I had as far as what the market looks like right now, and what are some things companies can do in order to kind of combat this crisis that we're in of not having enough jobs out there.
I have a comment to make about, you talked about
Go ahead.
better benefits. My best friend's company announced 2 weeks ago, yesterday, they are going now from, instead of having vacation time or PTO time, you can now take time off as needed.
Yes, and that's one thing. Yeah, that's something that I'm seeing with some of my clients actually. PTO is now unlimited. So they're taking the focus back to performance-based, and not just needing someone to be there to say that they were there in the seat. What we're finding is people are getting more things done at home. You know, a lot of distractions of the workplace aren't there when you're working at home. And so going to this performance model is something I think will be something that is something that they continue to do, or companies will continue to adopt. Is, let's look at the production. Give someone a goal, make sure they have the resources to do it, make sure the team is there, whatever that person needs, not just trying to be so black and white as far as, okay, this person is in this role, this is what they need. Everybody's different, right? So having the team internally, and a lot of times it's, you know, kind of making your HR platform a lot more robust as far as resources that you have for people to use, I think will kind of help us see the need for change. And I think, like you said, the unlimited PTO, or also I have employees that are doing dead periods during the holidays, where things get kind of slow that second, third week of December, they just close down the shop. And all of these things that I'm saying are what people are looking for when they look for a new opportunity, not just the benefits and pay, but what are they doing to look out for my mental health, my personal health, and those sorts of things. So also a question for you guys, as far as what are some other things that you've seen or that you think would be a good idea in terms of targeting top talent in the market?
So actually for us, of course, we're in the language space and we work with linguists all over the world, so that we've always done that. But our project management was always in-house. But now I see many more models, so especially for small companies, where you can now hire a project manager globally. It's much easier than it used to be. So you can have a project manager who's in Colombia or in Argentina or wherever. So I see a huge trend hiring a global workforce, which, pros and cons for sure.
Yeah, it definitely brings new challenges, but at least you have the people there to have that problem, as opposed to the problem of not having anybody at all.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where the issue is do you want to get the work done the new way and be flexible, or do you want to be rigid and just wait it out? And hopefully you get somebody that will want to adhere to the set of rules that you have. Now, of course, those types of traditional in-office Monday to Friday types of roles are out there. But from a competitive nature, the top people, they got to taste the freedom when they were working from home, and to try and make those people come back after they experience a better quality of life, better production as far as whatever their KPIs for that specific employer may be. It's hard to tell the good people, like, hey, I know that this worked for you, but now it's time to come back into the office. And I think that's just the main thing that I want you guys to take away from this presentation is, if you are having trouble finding people, look at your internal processes and how you're treating your employees internally to get a feel of where you may need to improve. Because it's not just, oh, I'm a big company, people want to work for us now. People's needs and things have changed over the last couple of decades. And like I said, with the millennials and how we are, a perfect job for us is not the same as what a perfect job looked like for our parents. And so companies understanding that, they'll be able to tap into the talent that is there, because we know that it's out there. It's just going to be a situation of making sure that we're putting people in the right position to thrive.
And Bruce, can
So
I add?
I have a little contrarian angle that I am seeing develop out there. And this is based on anecdotal evidence, but also on research I've been reading that's been posted in Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and a couple of others. The higher level jobs where people were used to coming in the office, they're finding that, okay, great, I have the flexibility to work from home. But the downside has been, is they're missing out on the culture and the collaboration and what happens before and after that Zoom call that they took at their home when their colleagues were in the office, and they're starting to feel left out, and they feel like out of sight, out of mind, and they may be missed out on promotions or being assigned a project. And bringing in millennials, they make relationships. I don't know what you call the generation that just got out of college or has been out of college for just several years, but they miss that relationship building, that they're not in the office where some are, and they're finding it difficult to get their legs underneath them with the culture and collaboration with the firm. So there's a challenge on the other side. How do I stay connected with the company, and how do I stay connected with whoever my direct report is without feeling that I am being overlooked?
Bruce, if you want to comment, and then Lee and Jeff also have questions. Bruce, your comments.
Yeah, to comment on that, and you're absolutely right. Being 100% remote is not some fix-all solution to the troubles that we're seeing in the workforce. What I think the bigger thing is being flexible, understanding that looking at this person and their skill set, what they would bring to my company is more important than the type of schedule that I want to put them on. Now, most jobs, or excuse me, some jobs are in position to where you need to be there. We work very closely together, and that's the situation. You can't pass that up, right? But the biggest thing I would say is just being flexible. Like, hey, maybe you're in office a couple of days a week, maybe you're remote a couple of days a week. Listening to the voice of the actual employee, the person that's making your company thrive, and understanding what they need, I think is the way to go. So yeah, of course you can't just say, oh, it's 100% remote. If that person's disengaged, then remote is just going to make them even further disengaged. So it's a total package that, the engagement, the remote possibilities, the culture, everything ties together to make for a good opportunity. It's not just going to be one specific area.
Lee, you also had a question, and then Jeff and Claire.
Great. So Bruce, I was curious, I guess looking at, the work generation, maybe boomer or before boomer, they were used to one job. You work that job a lifetime, you retire, you get your pension, and you go have fun. Nowadays, of course, now it's multiple jobs in different ways. And I was curious if you're looking in your crystal football, what do you see like 10 to 15 years out in terms of the evolution of the workforce? Are we all going to be like freelancers or working for ourselves independently? Or are we going to understand what a full-time job is in terms of what it looks like currently? What do you see as in terms of the evolution of the workforce and how we will work maybe 10 or 15 years out from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I see as far as you have to understand who are in position of powers now. Right now, it's still traditionally baby boomers, people that are a little older that are in positions of power. But of course, as time goes on, those are going to be replaced by millennials, right? And so what I think will happen with the workforce is I think the people going independent and the people leaving their job has been kind of like an outcry because of conditions that they've been working in. And like the conditions that our fathers worked in, where it was, you didn't complain about your job, you did your work, you went home, and you repeat it for the next 30 years until you retire. Well, now understanding where people have the power, I don't see that being the case in the years. I see companies kind of making this shift to run their company almost more so like a team is run, making sure that there's some camaraderie there. And I think that these changes that business can make around flexibility on work, around the culture, and making sure that the resources are there, whether it be therapists, whether it be, whatever, your industry and what the market demands you do, just being flexible to that, not being rigid on pay, understanding what you're bringing into a company is going to be better than the money that you're paying them almost every time. If it's not, then it's probably not a hire you should make. But I see people going back to work and having better work-life balance, or just quality of life in that job. I see people going back into regular jobs and not just being all freelancers once companies decide, because I think people like the fact that they don't have to worry about where their paycheck's coming from. Freelance is good, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And as people may know, that have worked for small companies or started their own business, there's a lot of things that you wish you didn't have to worry about, like benefits, for example. I need to give Hal a call actually after this about some benefits. But I think if once companies, like I said, realize that we need to be flexible, we can't be so rigid in our approach to hiring. they'll start to get good people back in the seats.
So you
Right.
think that full-time work as we see it now will continue on in the future?
I do believe that, you know, in my own opinion, that we will see people or companies beginning to thrive again, because you see it now with companies that are thriving because they're you know, being flexible in their approach, and the success of those companies will be seen by others. And you know, we live in a copycat industry. Whatever's working is what people will do. So I see that moving forward, that people will kind of wise up to that and start to continue to grow.
Not everybody's cut out to be a small business operator. Jeff?
Yeah, thank
Jeff, have
you.
a question?
Yeah, I do. I would add that having made all these internal changes, you also have to realize that you know, those by themselves are not going to necessarily attract people. So in order to find the people, you've got to take the approach that, you know, my best person is probably working for somebody else. And so I've got to market my business. I can't use the old traditional job postings that say, I'm looking for somebody with 15 years experience with these certifications, blah, 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 because it's not compelling. People that are working for somebody else, who are your ideal candidates, want to see your postings and see your marketing that attracts them. And so it's got to be, your postings have got to be compelling, and to create a reason why I, who am working for someone else and I'm happy where I am, would want to pick up the phone and call you. And that's not the traditional job posting. And so there's got to be, well, I agree with everything that Bruce is saying, but we got to take it further than that to say just having those policies in place aren't going to not create a line out the door of people wanting to work for you. You've got to create, and you don't want the line anyway. You want the ideal candidate, the one or two, not the 50 people applying. So
Bruce,
you got to look at both sides.
Bruce, your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that, Jeff, because yeah, we got to attract the talent before we can, you know, talk to them. And that's important on the marketing side is, and that's something that I deal with on a daily basis. And each industry is different. You know, the way you reach out to IT people is not the same way that you reach out to salespeople. And so it's just taking that approach where it's more tailored to who you are trying to find, and not some cookie cutter approach to your outreach is important. But what I'll add to that as well is, yeah, the marketing needs to be good. But once they get on the phone with you, you know, you know, you can have a marketing team get you in front of the right people, but you still got to sell it. You still got to close it, right? And so I think the marketing is a huge step of it, but during the conversations, during the interview process, that person needs to feel as if, okay, I'm actually joining a team here. This is somewhere that I'm wanted. This is going to be better in the sense of from what I was doing to what I could be doing. So yeah, I definitely agree. It's a step in the process towards finding good talent.
I actually just want to add to that. Talking to recruiters all the time, this is a job recruiting issue that's constant, because there's two kinds of hiring that you can do based on searches on LinkedIn. There are the people who label themselves open to work. They will be hired for less money because they're not working right now, so they would agree to a lower salary. Whereas people that label themselves, people that do not have that label, open to work, who are currently working, they are actually more attractive because they're currently in the field working actively, but you have to offer them a higher salary to take them away from their current position, which of course affects the budget, then the hiring budget for talent. So this is a constant conversation that is had in the career services industry about whether or not to tag yourself as open to work or not on LinkedIn as to who you want to attract and the kind of salary that you can attract.
All right, so
Yeah.
Bruce, Jeff, and Susie all agree. One quick question more, Bruce, and then we're going to wrap up. Claire asked, are you hurting your company by not offering some sort of hybrid work from home, work in the office split? Meaning, are you missing out on good people because you don't have that flexibility?
I think so. And, you know, just touching on, you know, what we were speaking on earlier, as far as being remote isn't always just the best thing. But for example, if you have a company and they sit down with all their employees and really understand that person, just like a good coach would, you sit down and have that one-on-one with them to understand how they like to work. And that's where management plays a huge part into it as well. Just because you might be the top performer in this company doesn't mean you're good for management. I think companies are starting to realize that too. If you have the right person in place, they'll know how to get the best out of the team. And so for some, that may be, okay, a day a week remote here or there. But making it to where it's open for everyone to have that option, I think will just kind of put in a situation where everybody's happy, because I've seen it happen before. Companies try to keep it under wraps of letting a person work remote a day or two here, and then someone else hears about it, and that's where that, we're bumping heads again. But I think having it as an open policy of, hey, these days we can't let you be remote, and being upfront with it in the interview process too. I've seen companies try to almost trick people into taking jobs, and then 3 months down the road they're back in the same spot. So transparency is key. Being upfront, like, hey, I know in the current market people are wanting to work remote, but on Monday, Wednesday, Friday are big days for us internally. We need you here. We can give you Tuesday, Thursday. And just being upfront with that, I think people are tired of that as well. Employers not being honest with them as far as what the job entails. And so you just end up hurting yourself and that person. If you trick somebody into taking a job, and then 3 months later down the road, they're like, this isn't what I signed up for. So I think that's something to answer Claire. Yes, but if it's not an option, if it's something that you can't offer, then of course, be upfront with that.
Bruce, fascinating. And I might adding to it that I think with social media and some of the online things that people are able to do, everything that you're saying is now being talked about, whether it's directly to your employer or Glassdoor and whatever. So really good insights, Bruce, and appreciate everything that you've been sharing with us.
Yeah,
Just a
absolutely.
quick word for everybody else. I just want to stop the